L in public.
Okay, well, that looks like it is recording. So I will begin. Good evening. Hello, Oki. My name is Stephen Ford. I am the Executive Director of the Allied Arts Council of Lethbridge, and this is an info session related to a very excellent new public art opportunity that we have coming towards the city, and give everyone an opportunity to kind of learn more a little bit about the call, and more importantly, have the opportunity to maybe ask some questions if you have any. So before we get any of that started, though, I just want to start with a land acknowledgement. Acknowledge that we all live and play and do public art on the traditional lands of the Blackfoot people, Treaty Number 7. Always when it comes to these land acknowledgements, I like to try and to talk a little bit more, have a little bit more of the focus on things that you can maybe do. And in terms of reconciliation, words are important, obviously, but that's only half the battle. Action is more important. So something that I might have talked about at another time doing a land acknowledgement, but I think it's a really great project, so I want to maybe bring it up again and speak on it a little bit, is the Galt Museum is doing a wonderful exhibit right now called Behind Racism, Challenging the Way We Think. It's kind of relating to putting you, giving you a bunch of information. There's many sort of interesting info pieces that you can read at this exhibit, but also some sort of activities that kind of illustrate the biases that you maybe have, that maybe are impacting your behavior and your decision making that maybe you're not even really realizing, and then sort of tying that to how we're interpreting race in our world. And that is a wonderful, very thought-provoking exhibit, and I highly recommend people check it out. The Allied Arts Council, we went actually as a group, as part of a team exercise to it, and I would definitely put it out there for folks, like for work groups or even a group of friends, go there together and maybe experience this exhibit, check it out, and have some good dialogue about it, because that's something I think that's kind of a really interesting way in terms of making reconciliation a real thing rather than just speaking about it and having the words kind of go out into the ether sometimes. So that being said, let's get back to this wonderful public art project. I'm going to pass it over to our outstanding public art coordinator, Katie Wild, and she's going to just speak a little bit about the call, and then we'll open it up for some dialogue and some questions. I would ask for folks, if you do have questions, throw them into the chat down below or into the Q&A sort of section down below there, and then I will sort of moderate things at the end of the presentation, and we can have a little bit more of a discussion around that. I will say as well too that this info session will be available after the fact, so if you maybe miss something or something you want to listen to again, it'll be posted on the public art website along with the call put in there, and it'll also be available on our YouTube channel. One last little thing before I throw it to KT. Please consider becoming a member of the Allied Arts Council and keep in the know with all the wonderful, not just public art things, but just different art opportunities and what have you that we're always trying to bring to you and try and make Lethbridge a little bit more of an arts community every day. So all that being said, all the housekeeping is done. I will pass it over to KT Wild to speak about the call. You're muted there, Katie.
Let me take that again. Okay, hi, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this info session. I'm very excited to share this call with you all, and I'm going to go over it and give some tips, and then we'll talk your questions. So if you don't already have the call in front of you, I highly recommend that you do. I'll pop a link to it in the chat here. It's always nice to follow along rather than making you look at it on my screen. I'm going to have a couple of slides here. And let me just put them in front of us. Screen. Can we see? That's not what I asked for, is it? Can everybody see the Henderson Connections fit? It doesn't look like that to me. Okay, good. Um, Thanks, Marianne. So we'll start with the map. This is the park from above. All of the pathways are outlined. This project does focus on mostly asphalt surfaces. You can see in the corner of the map a little legend. Need to zoom in. There is a link in the call to like a full PDF version of this, so you could kind of zoom in, and definitely recommend that you look at it on Google Maps, go in person, walk around. So as I said, mostly asphalt, all pathways and gathering areas, so it won't be any roadways or anywhere like that. But there's a little extra zone here in addition to the Henderson Lake Park. We have these two gathering areas at the exhibition at the Agriculture and Agri-Food Hub. This is often referred to by short form as like LDE, the Lethbridge and District Exhibition. Or you might see Agri-Food Hub in there. But this is what that looks like from above. So these are some concrete surfaces, but most of it is asphalt. So we are focusing on that. So there will be, through this project, multiple asphalt murals throughout the park, from anywhere from 5 to 8 that you can include in your proposal. You don't have to actually do a design at this phase. Just talk about what your proposal would be, the kinds of things you would like to do. And then there's also an engagement, two engagement components. One that is a public engagement where the public will actually take part in some way. That is to be determined. We will talk to the selected artist about that, formulate that. We will help and facilitate a bit. But we would love to know what you would have in mind for that. It might be involving people in actual painting. That's always really fun. But if you have another idea, please feel free to talk about that in your application, and you can even chat with us about it ahead of time. When we say ask us questions, we do mean it. The other component is a skill sharing component where we're really hoping to kind of grow the capacity of us to do, both artists and administrators and everybody, to do asphalt art in Lethbridge, which is a bit of a unique place. It's not the only place like it in the world, but it has some pretty huge temperature swings, and we don't have a lot of projects like that in town, so we want to do some more. And we'd like there to be a skill sharing component, which we also refer to as professional development, where we involve other artists who are interested in learning how to manage the materials and might want to paint an asphalt mural in the future. To create a professional development opportunity for them, which again, we can talk and help develop what that looks like. As I said, at the last point, exploring and expanding the asphalt murals in Lethbridge. The point of the murals themselves and the content and the feeling that we want to get from them, the effect that we want that to have, is there are so many amazing amenities around Henderson Park. It is not only a gorgeous park on its own, a total gem, but there's all these wonderful places around it. Nikka Yuko Japanese Gardens. There's a skate park. There's the exhibition, which is like such a huge place people go to, and they may not even know that just across the street there are all these paths that lead to so much more wonder. So artists are the ones that can really help communicate that and create engaging, interesting pieces that stop people in their tracks a little bit, and then keep them moving and keep them flowing through the park and exploring to places they may never have known existed, even if they've lived here all their lives, or maybe have not taken advantage of. Next, us. The City of Lethbridge Public Art Program is supported by the Allied Arts Council of Lethbridge. So you will hear from me the most through this process, but you will also have connection with the City of Lethbridge directly. So we're a team, and I know it can get a little confusing sometimes who's who. Never be shy to ask. The Parks Department is a huge partner in this. we're really excited to work with them on it. They've got all kinds of support in terms of managing the traffic flow when you're installing the work, and preparing the site, and really wonderful. And also our friends at the Lethbridge District Exhibition, providing that space around the gathering areas, around the entrances of that building, as well as some support for a staging area, a place to store materials, equipment, take a rest in the shade, use the bathroom, these kinds of things that can really help when you're working on site. So really grateful to them for that. For you, is this project for you? Eligibility. It's a very open call. We are looking for people with some experience, you know, if you're just getting into the arts in general, or if you've never painted, or you know, that you do need to have some relevant experience for sure, but you don't need to have done 1,000 asphalt murals to apply for this. So if you're not sure, you want to chat about it, please feel free to reach out. We can talk through that. But it is open to artists at all levels of their practice. We are hoping to find somebody sort of in the region, but it is absolutely open across Canada. We have a limited travel budget, but there is some there. So that will be up to the applicants to see whether that's feasible for them. But again, happy to chat about it. That is a limit though, so we won't be able to go over the 3,000 stated in the call. Know that WCB coverage or proof of exemption will be required. So if you don't already have that, it's not the most onerous process in the world. I actually just went through it myself. But it is required by the city. So just be thinking about that. And I can offer some more details if anybody is interested in talking about that. And then availability, of course, you need to be around. So if you look at the timeline included in the call, it's kind of a quick and exciting project to happen this summer, and with installation in September for the most part, but there is also the engagement components we are looking to have in spring. So they would be, we would like to save, you know, 1 or 2 sites that are around that you've proposed among the sort of 5 to 8 that people can actually like take part in and see in person in progress. So if you're not going to be here this fall or next year, it won't work out. Yeah, great, can do. So again, I should have looked at this slide a second sooner, but there is a detailed timeline in the call. It's not exactly what I have on the slide here. And I could say it 1,000 times. Do read the call, please. Every little piece of it is there for a reason. But overall, when you're thinking about it, you know, what does it look like for me right now? What am I doing next month? If it's me, what am I doing in August, September? So right now it would be great to be learning about the site, thinking about what you might like to do, thinking about your application, putting that stuff together, checking on WCB, and reaching out to chat about any questions. The application is due in July. So if you apply early, we always like that. If it looks like you sent the wrong file or something, gives me a chance to say, hey, is that what you meant? If you apply right at the very end, we may not really be able to flag that. So that's an advantage of applying a bit early. Then the notifications happen right at the end of that month, and right at the beginning of August, we're on site, we're site visits, we're getting the contract sorted, you're working on a design proposal. The design proposal is the piece where you will actually do like design drawings that are specific and show exactly pretty much what you plan to paint, and those will need to be sort of signed off on by the project team here. It's nothing too crazy. It's just we need to see them before they go in. And in that proposal as well, there'll be more details about what the rest of the plan looks like, timing, and these kinds of things. So we'll be talking in August while you're developing that to get as many details as we can sorted out, and so we can sort of sign off on them all together and not have too many unknowns hanging. over us. And in September, the installation begins. So that's when most of the painting will be done. October, we have sort of set aside for rain days. If something, gets rained out in September and we need a bit of backup, we could get some really beautiful weather in October. We can also get snowstorms in September. So we will plan the best we can, and we've left a little room for the unexpected. And then again in spring, if a portion needed to be bumped, or it could be used as one of the pieces that is set aside for engagement in the spring. So yeah, we will spend winter finalizing any of those last bits so that we're ready to roll when the weather comes back around in 2026. The scope of work is a section in the call, starts on the first page just after the background. And this is where it sort of delves into the details that I've touched on, including the installation sites, where you cannot propose to paint. So some design considerations, do's and don'ts. We call them should, may, and must nots. They're all fairly, I don't think anything should be too surprising in there, but do read them carefully and think about them when you're planning so that you make the best use of your time and not have to walk something too far back and start all over again. In your application, you will describe what you are planning to do. So as far along as you are able to be and comfortable being in that, will be great to help us picture. But again, we're not asking you to like produce fully developed artworks at this stage. This section also touches on materials, what types of paint will be used. This is somewhat negotiable. We do have a fair amount of information on different materials, types of paint, surface prep, this type of thing. So you may already have something you prefer to use, but we will want to check through all that and just make sure that it meets the sort of safety requirements both during like the installation and afterwards. Like we don't want to end up with like a really slippery surface after the fact that would be of concern to like pedestrian traffic or anything like that. So details on that we can chat about at any point. And we'll definitely do so while you're developing your full proposal. Anything you do know about materials you might like to use or have experience with, you can note in your application as pointing to your experience. There's also artist deliverable section, which is kind of like a timeline, but breaks down more like what we expect from you at each stage. And that's what I've started to touch on here. I think most of it is already there. Budget breakdown will also be part of the project proposal. There is a section on the next page that breaks down what the eligible expenses are. So you can be thinking about that and how that works for you in your business side of things. So that's like artist fees, general admin expenses, materials, shipping, delivery, insurance. And so you will also need general commercial liability insurance. So along with the WCB stuff, that's something to look into ahead of time if you haven't thought about it yet. And so the budget breakdown there, the full budget amount is $10,000 plus GST. So that's artist fees, project expenses, and so on. So there's a breakdown of that. You do get paid for your design proposal. Once that's accepted, that's an artist fee of $750 plus GST, and then the rest will be broken down in the contract into chunks by deliverables. So that's part of that negotiation once you're selected. I mentioned the travel budget up to a maximum of 3,000, and yeah, you don't have to provide budget details in your initial application, but be thinking about it for your proposal that will be due in August. That is just a more detailed version, and all of that is explained there. For your application. Yeah, do also note the timeline, like put it in your calendar, put it at the top of the application, whatever where you're glancing when you're planning this. Have those key dates noted for when your application is due, when you expect the notification at the end of July, site visit thing, and just make sure that you'll be around for those things. Overall tips for a successful application. I'm gonna come back to this slide after I do the detailed ones. So there's three main components of your application. There's the letter of interest, and that's where you kind of tie it all together and give us all the details that your CV doesn't give us and your images don't give us. So what are you thinking for the project? Describe your approach. What matters to you about this? How does it kind of like inspire you and relate to your artistic practice? How does it relate to your experience? And some very practical things like putting your full contact info in there. Sometimes we forget to do like the very obvious things, writing your name at the top of the test, right? So yeah, describe your approach. Try to focus on what's relevant. I know a lot of us do a lot of different things, and it can be a little hard to predict exactly what a jury is going to want to see and what's going to light their brains up the most. But think of it, put yourself in the shoes of the selection committee and of the public, and know that the selection committee is sitting there looking at your application on a screen together, having looked at it ahead of time, but we all meet and then look at it. Help us picture what it might actually look like. So if you do have a sort of different areas of style that you do, pick the one that makes the most sense for this project and just focus on that. Just talk about that. Put your images into that mindset and really let us walk away with something memorable that we can say, oh yeah, that applicant wants to do this kind of thing. Remember, with that kind of art. And don't be shy to be blunt. You don't have to, you can provide some context, but you don't have to go into crazy detail about all of the different things you do. What are the things you do that make the most sense for this project? And you can describe what moves you, but don't feel like you have to use, art speak or anything like that. We do just want to know the meat of it, what matters. Your CV or outline of artistic experience should be, you can highlight relevant things in there. You can include the whole thing, but it might be helpful to kind of do a reduced one, or at least to like highlight relevant experience. It's okay if it's long, but do include this for each member. If you are applying as an artist team rather than as an individual, do make sure that you include that for each member of your team. And it might be nice in the letter, which can be up to like 2 pages or so, is just to give a little summary of what each of you kind of like do, what your roles are in the team. And then again, yeah, for your images, try to have a cohesive set of like memorable, we can really picture that. Excuse me. And relevant, show you relevant experience. To try to make sure your images are well documented, that they are clear, that they're sort of straight, well lit. Sometimes we work with what we have, but it makes a difference. Do fill the page. Like try to use as much of that screen as you can, because sometimes it's a weird practicality, but we're trying to zoom in, and it's just nice if right away we see as much as we can. And do make sure that you label them with the title, date, medium, size, and a brief caption, 1 sentence. That might just give a little bit of context of what kind of a thing it was. And if it was created in collaboration, just note sort of your role in that work. You can also include a summary collage. I won't count that. If you have 10 individual images, I won't count this as like a disqualifying 11th image. But if you have a page that shows each image just briefly, so that once we've looked at everything, we kind of have that on screen while we're discussing, that is really, really helpful. It's taken a lot of memory power, so it is really nice to see that all at once. And that can be an 11th, that won't count against you. We evaluate the work, the evaluation is broken down as well in here. Oh, I should say a combined PDF, one combined PDF for all of these components, your letter, your CV, and your images. It can take a bit of copying and pasting and laying it out in a document, but it's extremely helpful to us. And if you're not sure how to do that, we can talk afterwards. I can give a tip or so on. But so we evaluate the applications on the overall strength of it, your past work, prior engagement experience. So the engagement is both like if you've worked with the public before, and the skill sharing, like if you have experience teaching, leading workshops, that kind of thing, that counts a bit as well. And then the completeness of the application. So I missed a word in the top, but the strength of is just like how much have you really just described like a project that sort of meets the goals of this call. I've got a little checklist here, which we can also provide. I think the slideshow gets sent out. A link to the slideshow also gets sent out with this. If not, we can make sure that this is available. It's really, really handy to use a checklist just to make sure you go through a million versions of it, make sure that you have all of the little bits. And I also like to, when I'm applying for something, once I've written it all, and I think I'm done, go through my application and I go through the call. I say, when I read the call, I say, where have I addressed that in my application? Can I point to that? Summary sentences in your letter are really, really handy. So we can say, really point to one and say, that's the gist of what they're going to do. So even if you've implied it through other context, try to include a summary sentence. And that can be very helpful. So that's basically it. I will turn it over to questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, KT. So we're going to
Years.
open it up to questions here in just a moment. I will clarify that, yes, I will be sending out this slideshow presentation, so folks will have that in addition to a link to the video. So I'll probably send that out tomorrow, which will be June 26th for anybody watching the video. So all those folks who have registered for this info session will be sent all those materials tomorrow. So I do have, maybe I'll start off with the questions. Just to get things rolling, is there any sort of specific themes or visual motifs specifically you think that the selection committee would be hoping to see with this project?
I don't think so necessarily. I mean, have a look at the design considerations. So that'll show you the kinds of things what not to do. Like it can't function as signage or advertising. Be careful with text because it can kind of veer into that zone. But I think take your inspiration from the surrounding amenities. Like they are listed in the background section. It talks about Henderson Park and the different things around it, like tennis club, golf course, skate park. And so I think without having to be like too on the nose, just depicting that, take some inspiration from those surrounding, and then sort of explain briefly, connect that in your letter. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Just to clarify as well, is this application or is this sort of call, is this open to emerging artists as well?
It is open to emerging artists. You should have some experience like in the relevant areas here, but certainly it can be a little hard to define emerging versus mid-career versus established. So if you feel like you might be emerging but you're not sure, just feel free to talk to me and we can get into that.
Excellent. We have a question from Jerry that asks, and it's pertaining to the WCB. They would love more information on how to go about getting proof of exemption when it comes to WCB.
Yeah, so either proof of coverage or proof of exemption is what you'll need. So either way, you would have to register with WCB. If you are not incorporated or limited liability, don't 100% quote me on that, but you have to have this extra layer of designation to get the exemption piece. So it's actually easier to get proof of coverage. And I will say the Alberta WCB people are super lovely. They're really nice, very helpful, very responsive, and they understand that it's a little weird for artists and they will work to help you navigate that process. So don't be shy, reach out to them. What you will need to do is sort of prove that you are an artist sole proprietor, and artists are by default sole proprietors. Um, what they want to see is that you aren't just like working for one client all the time, where it really is more of an employee relationship and they should be covering you for that. They want to see that you have different clients, and that you have expenses and you are operating as a business, even if it's like a smaller thing, even if it's on the side of a day job and so on. So I submitted my supporting documents for that were just it's different bills and like invoices to clients and some receipts and things that just show that I have expenses. And the initial registration is weird though. So if you haven't done it, do feel free to reach out, and also don't be shy to just call their helpline, and they will kind of walk you through that.
Okay. Eric asks, how much surface area are we talking about for this? Like, how much asphalt is expected to be painted in such a short period of time?
Yeah, so definitely understand that there are some limitations there. We want each site to be big enough to have to be noticeable and have an impact to catch people as they go by, and as much as secret surprises can be really fun. Like it, I wouldn't consider one site to be just like a little medallion size thing on the pavement somewhere. It should be, at body scale, so like a few feet long, maybe the width of the path. This can be very flexible though. So if you had a design that like didn't have full coverage of the whole width of the path, but it had a whole bunch of little motifs that like spread the way down, or it was thin and long or something like that, that can still have like a big impact. Just do be careful not to paint over existing directional marks, but there's not too many. And you can propose something in a certain area, and we're not going to look at it and be like, oh, there's a pathway direction mark. We'll just work through and around that when it comes to the actual like design. Um, so I was doing some calculations on the paint coverage, and I think honestly, anywhere from like a few hundred to a few thousand square feet is possible. It really depends on your design, and there can be large areas of solid color that may not actually take a long time to paint. I think there are different ways to deal with that. I would be cautious about submitting the idea that you'd have like a lot of like really highly rendered things. Like think about what works practically in not just mural painting, but like mural painting in this setting, which if you look at the work of a lot of other artists, we do see a little bit more like graphic blocks of color. That also works better for when you're painting with the community, areas that can be sort of outlined and then people can participate filling in. Um, so yeah, I think there's different ways or to navigate that, but it is a good point of something to be thinking about.
Great question. Um, Regarding sort of the surface in preparation, will the city be providing any prep or sealing of the pathway surfaces that are going to be painted on before installation?
So cleaning, yes. Like basic power washing, Parks is going to provide that the day before installation is scheduled. So we will be working with a like a park access pass that we will help facilitate for the selected artists, and that will trigger the cleaning of the surface the day before. If we need to like, there will be like closures and redirections for folks to go around. And I somewhat lost where that question began. Can I get a refresher?
Yeah, just asking about what sort of preparation
Yes.
in anticipation of the installation.
Right.
Yeah.
if you wanted to paint somewhere and we on our site visit and so on, we discovered that it's like a concrete area and it's sealed and it would need to be acid etched. We do not have a budget for that. That would have to come out of the artist's materials budget. So that's something that to think about. And again, it could be adjusted slightly depending. It could be good to have that in mind ahead of time. And if you propose something that's maybe not going to quite work there, it might be able to work somewhere else. So, but yeah, we won't be able to pay for more than the washing.
Awesome. And just to be clear of things as well, artists are not responsible for cleanup or removal of the pieces as they start to deteriorate. That's sort of built into the temporary nature of.
Yeah, it's not going to last forever. No, and that's part of what we will learn through this as well is just the weathering, how things behave over the winter. Even in spring, we'll get to see if there's any changes. I mean, we hope that, and like with relative confidence, there's a lot of great products out there that are quite durable and will last a while, but don't go look at Margie's work. Do go look at it. Um,
Do check it out. It's
yeah.
beautiful. It is wonderful by all means, but don't anticipate that you're going to have to do like five to eight of those. But do go check it out because it's wonderful. It's over by Galt Gardens there. Um, Maybe we should speak a little bit about the community engagement slash professional development end of things. Can you just maybe provide like an example of what that could maybe look like for folks?
Sure. So the community engagement could be like a community painting event. So working with a community group that is connected to the park. And that's something that we will help facilitate. But um, so when you think about involving the community, it's like how might they have a role in actually painting? And so probably be just something like one day, with some lunch and some shade. And at the beginning, you'd have them like come in and give an orientation. So we would need that to be considered in the materials that it would be like safe for them to use. Um, Already like something like specialized like thermoplastic wouldn't work for this, but there are some applications or spray applications that have like a high VOC or people would need to be wearing masks and so on, and that's just not feasible. So some of the sort of like safer, easier to handle paints that if you'd like laid stuff out ahead of time, you can have people who are a little bit more artistically inclined. We've seen this happen in other projects where like they might come and like actually help sort of do some of the outlines or the more harder parts, and people who just want to say, hey, I got to help paint that, come in and do fills. So there's a little bit of organization involved there and being able to convey what each person should do when clearly to them so they feel empowered and enabled and have a great time doing it. So that's just an example of that.
Awesome.
And sorry, did you want me to talk more about the skill sharing one as
Sure,
well?
yeah, maybe we can, yeah, speak on that a little bit too.
Yeah, so that could be, it'd be great if that had a hands-on component for the artists to who are interested in doing it to probably be like a bit of a smaller group, and we'd have people like sign up ahead of time and think about the kinds of things that you have learned both over your own career, and then also even just in the installations that have been done in this year and in the September and maybe October. Um, and what would you like to share? What have you learned? What did you wish you knew at the beginning? And while actually having some hands-on stuff, also having some conversation about some of the other practicalities and there can be a component as well that is maybe like indoors with a slideshow, or it could be lots of different things. So I think that is one that we would just talk more about what you think might work best, and then we can plan that out ahead of time, and then if need be, tweak or finalize that a little bit in the winter period, because we do also want to allow you to focus on the creation and the installation in September, because that will take a decent amount of energy.
Yeah, it's always beneficial, like to sort of put yourself in the space of yourself when you were beginning, and that idea of like what would I have benefited at the beginning, sort of when I was an emerging artist, what things can, and passing along that because that's how we make more great artists in our community.
Yeah, even if
Um,
you're still an emerging
coup
artist in general, but if this is like a material, like you're newer to this material or something like that, sometimes people who are newer at something have the greatest insight to share because they're really noticing all of the things as they come along.
Yeah, and we're always happy as ALI Arts Council to help facilitate and help give you sort of pointers and guidance towards that stuff too. That's part of one of the many things we do. A couple more questions here. Will the artists have input specifically on what 5 to 8 sites that they paint, or is that assigned
Oh,
for them?
100%. No, we want to hear from you what inspires you, what is interesting to you. We do want them to be spread out. To a degree, it's there may be an opportunity for them to sort of connect in some way, but we wouldn't want them to all be clustered at one site because part of what we want to do is encourage that movement and sort of reward people for getting there and getting to see another piece or feeling like they can explore everywhere and find them all, you know.
Awesome. And the pathways, just to be clear too, they're consistent in terms of mostly consistent, at least with width and the material and texture and whatnot.
It varies.
More or less.
It actually does vary a bit. It's not crazy different, but when you walk around the park, um, yeah, you just start when you look at it with this lens in mind, you do start to notice like some differences. There are some areas where the asphalt is not in as good condition, so um, that's something that we won't be able to see on a map that you'd want to see on foot or during a site visit. So yeah, getting too baked into exactly where you think you want it to be, if it will only work right there, but you haven't seen that site yet, I would just caution and leave yourself some flexibility to like it could be in this zone or um yeah.
Awesome. And just so clear too, because it is like there's a lot to be painted here. It is open to team applications, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
The budget is the same either way, so that will be up to you how you divvy that in your team. But yeah. And then you have what hopefully comes out to help when it comes to the engagement pieces with the public and the artists.
Awesome. Is there any other questions from the floor? Oh, Jerry has raised a hand. Jerry, if you can just put your question into the chat if possible. Okay.
Seeing anything in the chat myself, but I think it feels
Oh,
like
there we go.
oh,
Eric asks, I see the 750 artist fee. When would the rest of the money be released?
yeah. So that will be it hasn't been specifically divided out by specific deliverables just yet, but it will be like something at the beginning to make sure you have money for materials and so on. But it won't be all up front. There will be something reserved for the end, like after everything is sort of signed off on. So we can figure out how we will best break that up. We'll come with a suggestion, and then if it needs to be negotiated a little bit, that's
Thumbs up. Jerry, I do see your hand up there, but if just to for the sake of because we never know with audio and all that kind of stuff, if you can put any questions you have into the chat there. Um, any other questions from the floor? Give Jerry another second if they have anything.
it doesn't.
Okay, if that's it, then I think we'll call that a successful session. Thank you very, very much to the very knowledgeable KT Wild, finger snaps, jazz hands. Thank you so much. As I mentioned before, we'll be sharing the video from this with everyone who's registered. You can always feel free if you do have questions and you want to reach out. We're here for that as well. So you can email KT at publicart@artslethbridge.org. And we'll be happy to answer any questions we can. You can always pick up the phone and go old school as well and give us a call as well. We're happy to do that too.
Happy to chat.
Yeah, yeah, once again, please consider signing up for a membership for Allied Arts Council. You can find that at artslethbridge.org. Check out all the wonderful things going on in your local community. Upside Downtown, big concert series is starting next Thursday on Rotary Square. It's going to be a wonderful time. It goes from 5 to 7 every Thursday night all throughout the summer. Please come check it out. Come hang out with us. Have some wonderful food at the food trucks. We've got a bar there as well. We've got art integrated with the concerts as well. It's going to be a great time all summer long. So please check that out. With that being said, thank you all so much for participating, and we'll see you all down the line.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Jerry, email me your question and I'll get back to you.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.